Angela and I had the same theme, surprisingly, because it is the theme of the conference. But I think you'll find that we've tackled it fairly differently from each other. So Angela gave you a lot of really important information. And most of my teaching on writing, if you want to put it like that, is in the context of writing retreats. And I know that I've got a couple of people here who've been to one of my writing retreats, and they survived the process, which is lovely. So it's going to be a bit more interactive, and which is why it's important that you're on your tables. But we're going to start in the way that I like to do when we start a retreat. So if you want to close your eyes at this point, you can. I'll be saying Amen, and that's the clue that that bit's over and you can open your eyes. Amen. So at the risk of making you feel really uncomfortable, we're going to look at the gap. Now, it's a different shape for all of us. It's a different size, and it's there for different reasons, but we've all got one. And whatever it looks like for you, it will feel like lack. And that's a horribly uncomfortable position to be in when you feel that you're less than, that you haven't got everything in place. And that's why we're so quick to walk away or to fill the space with distraction, pretending maybe in the process that it's all okay, nothing to see here. And so what I want us to do, first of all, a little exercise in your tables. And I know I'm on a sticky wicket straight away because I'm going to ask you to talk among yourselves, and I may never get you back. It's a risk, but I'm going to take it. So we're going through a series of little processes, and this is the first one. Where are you right now? If you had to put a pin, metaphorically, into your writer's journey map, where are you? You know those maps that say you are here. Where does your pin drop? Now, this isn't looking at the gap yet, because that's coming. But it's all about where we are here and now. So you can share a little bit about your journey. What I'm also going to encourage you to do, and this is really important, is to be taking notes. Because you will want to come back to this and reflect on it later, I'm hoping. But in any case, writing stuff down, as you know, gets that whirly stuff out of your head and onto the page, which is so helpful. So the question is, where are you now in your writer's life? And this is great, because I'm always really nosy. Like, what do you write? How long have you been writing for? Okay, that's all the assignment is. So don't drift off into other topics, okay? And I'll call you back in a couple of minutes. Off you go. And then while you're still talking, if you want to segue into the destination, where are you heading as a writer? For some of you, that'll really tie in with what you've just been sharing about where you are. But for some of you, it might be sounding quite different. So just keep chatting, but just change the focus now. Where are you trying to head to as a writer, if you know? I wonder if some of those places you wanted to get to were in the realm of dreams and ambitions, or whether they were strategy. If you want to just finish sharing those thoughts now, we'll come back to that a little later. And one of my hopes is that perhaps you can carry on some of these conversations over lunch. We've got plenty of time today to carry on with these really lovely chats with each other, but hopefully your thoughts are getting into the zone. In a moment, we're going to be looking at the gap. You might call it the meantime. And I want to ask the question, does the meantime have to be so mean? Does it have to be? Why is the meantime so mean? It doesn't matter whether you're waiting for lunch or Christmas or a publishing contract or what. it can feel really mean to wait. It can feel like a chasm that you can't cross, or a road that the horizon just keeps staying as far away no matter how much you journey along it. I'm going to give you a little illustration, just as I was preparing this talk, actually. So I had my outline and I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted it to feel like, even though I hadn't backed it up with any words as yet. And I felt all that responsibility, like I'm supposed to be able to do this stuff, and what does God want to say to you all? And will they be wanting a refund if I don't get it right? And on the morning that I'd set aside to, like, today, I've really got to get down to this talk, suddenly I had the urge to clear out my chair emails, which was interesting. And I found the 3 that had been saying at the top for a couple of months now, 3 unread ones, and I'd never found them, but I found them that morning, which was great, and it turned out they weren't worth finding. Then I messaged the committee a few times, keep on with the team, and a couple of friends. And then I tidied up my workspace, neatening up some pages. And then I did some more work on another writing project, because as you'll know from the last edition of Christian Writing Magazine, I like to have more than one thing on the go. And it's for times like this, where suddenly that's the thing you want to do. And then finally I got down to writing a couple of sentences, these exact ones as it happens. This was real time. And then I reached into the drawer for some hand cream. And then I did another sentence, this one. And then I went back into the drawer for some lip balm, double checking whether I was anywhere near coffee time yet. And I wasn't. So why did I procrastinate? Angela's already touched on this. Why are we gold medalists in this thing? Why do we go through this ridiculous set of dance moves again and again instead of just doing the thing? For me, it was simple. The gap between where I was and where I needed to be felt too wide. Although I knew better, I didn't trust myself to deliver. And if you drilled a little bit further into that substrate, I was just scared. And that's all it can be sometimes. Procrastination is just avoiding the negative feelings because we just want to feel nice, and having to do stuff that we're scared of doesn't feel nice, so we put it off. But anyway, I did manage to get the talk done, so that's great. But that's what my gap looked like on that morning. And I wonder what yours looks like right now. So we've considered where we are and maybe where we want to get to. And it doesn't matter how sort of bridgeable that gap is. For some of you, it could be, well, I've never written before, but I have got my sights set on the booker. Well, that's a very big gap, to be fair. I may just have to burst some bubbles this morning. But for some of you, that gap is spannable, but you maybe don't know how to do it, or you can't do it alone. I don't want to fill in the gaps for you. The gaps, it's all about the gap. I'm a terrible one for puns, and I don't know I'm doing them. Anyway. So what is your gap? Now, I've put some things on here that are mine. I don't think I'm alone. I was saying to somebody earlier, the beauty of an event like this is that you go, really? Really, you think like that as well. It's not just me. It's really encouraging to know we're not the only mad people on the planet. So your gap might be as simple as finding the time and space to write. And although it's simple never means easy. I mean, simple as in, well, that's fixable, right? But it's not easy. So please don't think by saying simple, I'm like, oh, you're still on that one. I ticked that off a long time ago. Maybe if you're writing Christian stuff or you've got a real passion to honour Jesus, you might be uncertain as to what God is saying. Perhaps you're working out what happens next, either in your work in progress, your WIP. I'm sure, we could think of some really rude words that fit that for when we're really cross, when the meantime is very mean. I'm sure WIP could mean something very different. Your wordsmiths, you can come up with something. But sometimes working out what happens next is enough to make that gap feel too big all over again. Maybe it's as simple as just getting your project finished, getting that chapter done, getting to write the words, the end. Maybe it's a bit bigger, a bit broader, finding a publisher. Oh, that's a perennial gap for many of us. And unfulfilled ambition. Now, I've written that last, but that's top of mind. Top of mind. I'm really happy with the way my writing is going, but have I got unfulfilled ambition? I sure have. Does it hurt sometimes? It really does. Do I feel that's a gap that may not be bridged? I fear it, but I trust that God will be so kind to me. So I'm going to ask you to turn back to your groups again and just share your gap in the context of the question, what feels out of reach right now? And if at the end of that little chat, you've come up with something that isn't on the list, then I'd love you to tell me. Okay, a couple more minutes. What feels out of reach right now? And if it's too painful to mention, too secret to be sullied by words, then keep it to yourself. But I'm sure you've got some chatterboxes on your table somewhere. So thank you for all that. How we respond to the gap, though, is key. And I'm sure it's not just me that finds the gap scary. Whatever that gap is for you, whatever's causing you the problem, we procrastinate and we freeze. Does anybody know that response? We tend to talk about fight or flight when we're under threat, but actually freeze is a really typical animal response. And I'm a great freezer, if you know what I mean. And then we come up with excuses to justify that avoidance. It's not just about our private procrastination, it's kind of what we put a name to. So we might find ourselves, I always think, what are you thinking about? You don't know until you hear it come out of your mouth. I'm taking a break right now from writing, actually, until I get myself in a better space. See, it sounds great, doesn't it? It's not really the right time for me just now. I'm waiting till I know exactly what to write next. And then if we bring God into it, it sounds so much better. I'm just waiting on the Lord right now. Now, I'm not unsympathetic or hard-hearted, and some of you might have real things that you're saying, and it's true for you, and I can't be unsympathetic to your difficult life circumstance. But if it is an excuse, not a reason, then we need a bit of word of advice from Jane Austen. This is my favourite Jane Austen quote. I'm not at all in a humour for writing. I'm as right on until I am. That was a woman who recognised an excuse when it confronted her. It's just great, isn't it? If we're hoping that all our ducks will line up in a row and somehow form a bridge across our gap, we might just need a reality check. And there are times, I write for a living. I say that, I don't get paid, but writing is how I spend my life, just to burst that bubble as well. There's no money in it. Well, for some. I'm really happy for the ones that have money in it. I haven't found any yet. I'm still going to write on until I do. That's a misquote. There's no money in writing, so I shall write until there is. Oh, dear. But sometimes, most of the time, I sit at my desk and I write whether the muse has turned up, whoever she is, she works very part-time, whether I'm in the mood, whether I've got anything to say. And I write until I've got something to say. I write till I find it, if that's helpful. Because the wonderful thing about any sort of writing, really, you can just scrub it out. So typically, I've found so far that I take out the first chapter of a novel entirely, having tried to edit it and rework it a dozen times. I normally just take it right out, and the book's no poorer for it, apparently. I do the same with the opening sentence. That's normally really poor. And with an opening paragraph, all really poor. And sometimes you have to write your way into your writing. So your writing might be about, well, I don't really know what to say about this topic, but hey, the deadline's in 3 hours' time, so I'm just sitting here, all of that stuff, and it gets it out of the way, and you delete that. You make sure you don't send that version. Otherwise it gets really confusing. So here we move on, because we're going to say, look again at this gap. And here is where I find it gets really exciting. And admittedly, I speak as someone who's easily excited, but I do find it exciting. Because what if we stop calling it a gap or a space or anything that implies a lack, we reframe it? And that is a device that's really handy in kind of correcting psychological distress. If you reframe a situation, you can look at it a bit more positively. But it's not just about giving it another name, it's understanding that it could be somewhere different. And so we're going to call this thing the liminal space. I haven't just invented this. You're like, oh yeah, I was way ahead of you. I'd already written it down. Okay, here's the liminal space. It even tells you how to pronounce it. Look at that. Oh, actually, I think this... Oh, hang on a minute. Yes, look. Whoa. Who doesn't love a gadget? Hey, woo, that's about the second time I've remembered it does that. Okay, liminal space. Now, here's the definition for you. Occupying a position at or on both sides of a boundary or threshold, at which point you're much clearer, aren't you? Second one, relating to a transitional or initial stage of a process. So the Latin limen, I love a Latin word, literally means threshold. So liminal spaces are the gaps from an entry point to another point. So an easy example is that your hallway is a liminal space from your front door to your other rooms. You don't tend to get the little signs that you can stick on a room. You don't tend to get one called liminal space, but I think it could catch on. Adolescence, here's another example. Adolescence is the liminal space between childhood and adulthood. You get the idea. But this is where I want us to tune in, this second part, because there's a key nuance in this word, liminal. Because, it's not very subtle. It does more than carry implication. It's talking about transition, change, development. And this is why I'm calling it exciting, because it's in the gaps that the real stuff happens. If you haven't written that down, I think that was a really great line, actually. I was really disappointed not to hear some more pen scratching. It's in the gaps that the real stuff happens. So I'll give you another illustration from my own experience, because my experience as a writer has been full of gaps. In the autumn of 2019, I started a new book. It's great to start something new, isn't it? All the enthusiasm, the potential. Oh, anyway, I had the title and everything. I like a title before I get started because it keeps me on track. Stops me going off and talking about the history of meringue or something. Plugging into God. I think it was great. It was great. And I had the concept behind that of just encouraging Christians to lean into God that bit more closely when times are tough. So I'm saying it facetiously, but the book was serious, okay? I thought, well, I've been through some tricky times. I'm not an expert, but I've had a lot of tricky times, and I've managed to get through. So I started writing this book with a huge level of enthusiasm, as you can imagine. And the words flowed and the chapters were taking shape. And every time I sat down, it's like, oh, and I could write that. Then several things happened. So remember the timing, 2019. Do you remember that year? Yeah. Okay, firstly, I got ill. Now, I don't get ill. I'm nursing a little bit of a cold at the moment, which is making my voice a bit deeper. I don't usually get ill. I got really ill. I then had a major domestic upheaval. Some of you may know what I'm talking about there. The COVID pandemic arrived and kind of disrupted everybody. I moved into a new town, mostly as a result of the major domestic upheaval, you understand, and I despaired about the book. But actually the book was the least of my troubles at that point. But I still wanted to write this book, and it wouldn't leave me alone. And every now and again, I'd return to it and kind of throw more words onto the page, a bit like you'd throw wood onto a bonfire. But there still remained this gap between the book I was trying to write and it ever being finished enough to get a reader. And then a couple of years, it was, I had a revelation. I shouldn't be writing a book as such. It should be a devotional. Yes, that's what the blockage is. So I changed it all. I made it into 30 days. I reshaped the existing words, which mostly meant deleting most of what I'd done, and added some more in. And I really thought I was up and running, okay? Still not quite. And I had the sense, and it was confirmed to me by talking to a couple of other people, that maybe God wanted to work on me a bit first. I was so desperate to work on this book, and maybe God had to work on me. So the gap that faced me on that writing project was not about being uncertain of what to write. I had ideas, but there was just that check, if you like, that kind of hand pressing me down every time. It's like, so we can go, okay, maybe not yet. That gap had to be a liminal space for me. And it was, I have to say. I was wanting to work on the book, and God was wanting to work on me. And by eventually, I mean end of last year. So that's, I can't do maths. But at the end of 2024, so that's however many years since 2019, I thought the only way I was going to get this jolly book done is if I proposed it to a publisher, and they liked it, and they gave me a deadline. So I really had to do it then. But actually, they wanted me to change it a fair bit. So all of that, 5 years was it, of messing around, and all the time God was wanting to mess with me. It wasn't wasted time, none of it was, but the book that's coming out next September has no relation, it's not even the same title. It's called Give Me Strength, ! Oh, I love the deeper voice. The book is better for the waiting. It's better for that gap. I had to dig really deeply into myself for the treasure. But I'm really glad that God gave me that opportunity. So, another slide for you. Okay, transforming gap. All right, the first thing, time and space. We think of time and space in terms of being able to do the writing. But actually, sometimes that liminal space is, like I've said, the time and space for God to work in us. I won't say more about that. I've said enough, I think. But a prayer like, it's a dangerous prayer. Do in me what you have to, God. Do in me what you have to. I've got many situations in life where God's done that. Second one, this is important. Time for our writing skill or technique to improve. Now, like the cliche, time's a great healer. Well, it's not really. It's what happens in the time that maybe achieves that. So, time for our writing skill and technique to improve. That's not going to happen just because you've ticked a few days or months or years off the calendar, you understand. There may be some work for you to do. But it's really interesting, actually. Angela used an illustration from her cello playing. I don't play the cello, I play the saxophone, but I'm not going to talk about that. I just threw that in, I don't know why. But about a year ago, I started going back to drawing and painting. Now, when I say going back a lot more years than I want to admit. Veronica talked about retirement, and I'm in a position. Oh, what's that noise? Is that somebody's phone? Or that's lovely. What is it? I feel like singing along. Anyway, I'm going to try and ignore it instead. I started doing drawing and painting, and literally, it looked like a child had done it. Now, that's because a child had done it. It was me as a child. I hadn't done it since school. And funny enough, during the 40 plus years, I hadn't suddenly improved by not doing any art. So when I started doing art, I was really disappointed. So it looks like a child's done it. And there was a little voice inside me went, yay, it was me. My inner child. And so I had to work on it. And I'm much better now. Quickly, much better, which is interesting. So do all the stuff that Angela encouraged, reading the books on writing. Collecting writing books is great, but it doesn't quite be, it's not quite as effective as reading them, but I have got a lot on my shelf. It's a little bit like exercise videos, isn't it? Oh, I've still got the bad back, despite having the 3 DVDs that tell you differently. And sometimes, as I've said, the transformation has to be in what we've written. And what you've written now, and it might be as far as you can take it. I've been in that situation again and again. I had somebody read my first novel and they went, oh, it's not ready. That was a commissioning editor, by the way. I had to believe them, even though, of course, she was an idiot and didn't know what she was talking about. But she said it wasn't ready. And at the time, I thought, well, actually, it's a moot point, because whether it's ready or not, I can't do any differently. I've peaked here. But then a couple of years later, I went back to it. I thought, oh, do you know what? This isn't ready. But wonderfully, I'd improved as a writer. It's still not ready for publication. The publishing world, they're idiots. All of them are idiots. And then we've got time for feedback from others and honest self-reflection. As Adrian would say, he hates all kind of feedback, including constructive. Isn't it horrible? But do you know what? It's how we learn, and we've got to get over ourselves sometimes. And sometimes people are idiots and they don't know what they're talking about, but sometimes they really do know what they're talking about and we're not quite ready to hear it. So that honest self-reflection comes into this transforming place. If you're really struggling to write something, are you the right person to be doing it? It's worth asking, because it'll save a lot of time if you're writing the wrong project. But is what people are saying something I've got to take on board? And I'm not saying about the negative stuff. Yeah, you can ignore all of that, because people really are idiots. You've got to ask the right people for the advice. Choose your friends and writing and reading buddies carefully. And then time to let the dust settle and hone our perspective. I've got an example, ever so quickly, from the context of my own memoir, which was published in 2018, called Too Soon, A Mother's Journey Through Miscarriage. And when I wrote it, I was 20 years on from the 4 miscarriages. I can tell you now, I love to help people that are hurting. If I can offer some comfort, I would love to, and some encouragement. But you can't do it when you're in that horrible place. And I have a real clear image of going to somebody's book launch many years ago of a lady who'd written her memoir about coming through domestic abuse. And I applauded her for it hugely. I mean, literally, as it happened, because I was at the book launch. But the overriding impression I have of that evening is how angry she was. She was still steaming about it. And so she'd written this book, but actually she'd written it sooner than she should have done. So when I say let the dust settle, sometimes it's the topic. You know, writing to help people in trouble doesn't translate to writing while we're still in trouble. I mean, you can journal, you can make your notes, you can put the stuff down that's going to be your raw material later, but I think you know what I mean. And then, of course, allowing God to orchestrate his perfect timing. You know, we might argue with him about that sometimes, because like God, it'd be really great if you could just do that thing right now. And if not right now, then maybe yesterday. But he doesn't. He doesn't. Which is really annoying, but really brilliant. So how do we get across the gap? We're not BT engineers or council workers gathering round a hole and just looking at it as a team, doing nothing. That was supposed to be a joke, by the way. Oh, thank you. Oh. I should have put more stooges in the audience, shouldn't I, to laugh at the right place. But we want to cross it. We want to cross it. And so we need to step into it. Now, I was faced with a scene a little like this on a long-distance walk a few years ago. It was the last day 9 of this long-distance walk. And I don't walk slowly, like it was a really long way, just to be clear. And to get to where I needed to get to, I was faced with this bog. It wasn't this exact one because, funny enough, I was too distressed at the time to get my photo out and remember it. But all I could see were these clumps of cotton grass surrounded by brown water. Oh, and by the way, my friends at the gate in the distance. It was my liminal space. Now, I wanted to avoid it because of reasons, because of really good reasons. And it was as wide. If you've ever done that walking thing, like, oh, I just need to walk a little bit further. It was like, as far as the eye could see. I had to get across it. And it looked forbidding. And it looked off-putting. And it looked like it could be messy. Some of your liminal spaces look like that. Transformational? Well, I didn't think so, but it was necessary. And so the short answer of that is don't get stuck this side of the gap. For some of you, that gap, you've been looking at it for an awful long time, scratching your head, praying, maybe trying to dip a toe in, and it's just horrible. And too many writers stop here. They don't take the other steps needed. They don't pursue their dream. They don't achieve their goal. And they might finish up with a story that goes like, well, I thought God was asking me to write a book, but it turns out I was wrong. Don't let that be your story, no pun there. Now, the only way I got across that gap, I'm not going to give you some lovely story about how God just lifted me. No, I just leapt very ungazelle-like across that morass, trying to land on all these not weight-bearing clumps of grass. And my boots were just full of water, brown water, by the other side. And I walked all the way into Robin Hood's Bay with wet feet. I'd love to say I learned my lesson and never did that again, but my husband is witness to the fact that only a couple of years later, my feet looked like this because I did a really similar thing. Yeah. Anyway, you don't have to get it as wrong as I did. So I've got some final tips for you here, and then I'd love to take any questions you might have. Oh, there's a slide missing. Oh, bear with. Yeah, a plane to listen to, yeah. You can see all this, can't you? Yeah. I'm going to try another one, look. Right. Sorry, I'm going to have to start the whole talk again. I really hope it's... Oh, you see, this has got the animations, look. Oh, just to prove I can do PowerPoint. Oh, you see, look. Oh, do you know it's better second time through? I think more people should do an action replay of their talk. Angela, I'll leave you a little while and then you can just have another go. Yeah. Oh, you know, that's so much better, isn't it? Oh, yeah. Oh, I feel quite wistful for the old days now. Some helpful tips. Oh, and they're in the wrong order. I'm sorry, because I did change it, but every time you press save, all the pictures disappear. So I'm going to start with that one. Do not strive. I say this a lot in my writing group. The biggest tip I can give you, you've got to get across that gap, but please don't strive. Please don't strive. I see writers and others wear themselves out with their ambition and their self-effort, and they're keeping on, and bless them, they try. But I just want to go, please, do not strive. You know, sometimes you do have to kind of metaphorically kick the door in of an agent or a publisher, but do not strive. Seek God on that. Okay, so now we'll do the tread lightly. We can when we're doing it God's way. That sounds horribly trite, and we're running out of time, so I'm speed talking now. But we can tread lightly, not because we're going through a minefield, but because our burdens can be light ones. If God is carrying us and he's carrying our burden and he's put those desires in our hearts, and funny enough, he wants to bless us, he can do it. We don't have to put our hobnail boots on and clamber our way through. We can tread lightly. We can skip through it. I tried to, it ended badly, but you know, you take the point. Take God's hand. We don't do this alone. We've got a room full of people also with hands that you can hold on to, okay? Find somebody today, say, would you hold my hand? They'll look at you really strangely, but hopefully they'll know what you mean. Don't rush ahead or lag behind. I got stuck that day, the first day, with the brown, brackish bog stuff, because I'd lagged behind and my friends were already through it. I mean, it meant that my blushes were spared, but if I'd kept up, I could have got through it. And if I didn't rush on like I did, trying to cross the mud, that wouldn't have happened either. The socks did come out good, actually. And take appropriate steps. Now, here's a great picture. I wish I'd drawn it. I can't give the credit on the internet, but isn't it brilliant? Take a photo of it because I'm finishing here. This is brilliant. To get across, you've got to take steps. But for goodness sake, take appropriately tiny ones. Because this poor guy on the right, I mean, he might have said, step 1, write a book. But he can't even get there. And his ladder looks easier. But actually, the little guy at the top has got up his. I just think that says it all. In fact, I should have let it say it all. But yeah, I said finally, and I've finaled. I'm going to stop there. Thank you. Well, you've been wonderful. Thank you very much.